Ah, thank you, Dale. Thank you, Victoria, and our music ministry for that. Beautiful. So, before I introduce our illustrious speakers to come up again, just want to remind you, we started this last Sunday. For those of you who have the Unity on the Bay app, know that some of the quotes that they'll be sharing, they're already in there. There's a space for notes. There's some questions that we invite you to take with you and take them deeper within you for this week ahead. So just a reminder that it's out there. It's okay to bring out your cell phone and open up the app during this talk. With that, I'm going to just share with you a little bit more about the two individuals that are blessing us with the message today. Angela Ribeiro, her journey into the spiritual path and energy healing practices began in her late 20s after she retired from sports, where she was representing Brazil at 2 Olympics. Not one, 2 Olympics. And for those of you we're blessed. We got a new sound system. Yay. And we're just working out the kinks. And we are blessed. So with that, she was, for those of you who are wondering, she was a high diver for Brazil in the Olympics. So it's very cool. She is an energy healer, and she was involved with the Joray Fellowship for a while. In 2005, she joined Unity on the Bay. She came in, she started serving as a prayer chaplain for over 8 years, and she is also a past recipient of Unity on the Bay's Presidential Award for Leadership. She's also a recipient this past year of the Reverend Chris Jackson Scholarship. And I just want to take a moment to mention, through the support of this spiritual community and the many ways in which Unity on the Bay has been blessed, a few years back we created the Reverend Chris Jackson Scholarship to support individuals within our community and beyond, who have felt the call to become credentialed Unity leaders. That's a Unity minister, a licensed Unity teacher, or a spiritual director. And so Angela is in the beginning stages of her ministerial path within Unity, and we're very blessed by it. If it's something that's in your heart, the applications for the scholarship are now open, and you can go to our website and check that out. Carmen Avedo is intrepid, she is bold, she is earthy. She has been a Reiki master for almost 20 years. She was also a prayer chaplain for 7 years, and for many of those years, she was the lead and our chair of the prayer ministry. This also, by the way, is a plug for the prayer ministry, obviously, right? She just really has been a wonderful presence within our community. She also was a recipient of one of Unity on the Bay's awards, receiving the award for her spirit of service a few years back. We are very grateful, and she's very grateful for the ways in which the divine is infinitely expressing diversely and beautifully through each one of us. Both Angela and Carmen have led our Wednesday night services. They lead meditations on Sunday. And along with me, the three of us, the trio, we do meditations every Saturday morning on Facebook and YouTube that you should definitely check it out. Both speak at Unity of Miami Gardens, and today they are speaking here at Unity on the Bay. Let's give them another warm blessing and thank them already as they come on up.
Let me set up my timer because, I receive threats otherwise. I won't say who. Love you too, thank you. So, we've been hearing about the 5 principles for the last couple of weeks. We do so every year. And when Angela and I were speaking to align ourselves for today's talk, I told her, we're preaching to the choir. We all know the 5 principles. We might not be able to recite them verbatim, but we're living them. Most of us, I would say, 95%, if not more of us, have been sacred servers. And that is living the 5 principles. So we're going to start with a little brush up, and then we'll go into our talks respectively. So the first principle The verse from the Bible that talks to me about it is, in God we live, we move, and we have our beings. That first principle of there's only one presence and one power, God the good. Oh, you gotta forgive me if I get emotional. It's so profound. And it takes us into the second principle, which is if there is only God, right? A Course in Miracles tells us there is only love or fear, only two choices. And fear is an illusion. So if there's only God the good, then that means each and every one of us is that expression of God. In our diversity, in our sparkling beauty, each one of us is the face of God. Now the challenge with that principle is when we get to extend it to that special person that pushes our buttons, that drives us crazy, that thinks diametrically opposite, oh my God, you're so intelligent, how can we not agree on this? Person, in them is also God. And that's the mystery that we're gonna delve in today.
So moving forward to principle number 3, the short version of it is thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, meaning that thoughts combined with feelings, they have creative power. So there's no such a thing as a neutral thought. Everything we think and entertain have consequences in our lives. So if we have the bad habit to thinking how we are not worthy, we're not good enough, we don't have what it takes, life is tough, we are a victim of the world we see, we will end up producing that kind of reality in our lives. So moving forward to principle number 4, we're going to learn about the importance of prayer and meditation in our lives. So here at Unity, we teach affirmative prayer, which is like we practice standing in the awareness of our oneness with Source, and we speak from that place. We affirm, we decree, we contemplate. And when we combine that with inner stillness and inner silence, we begin to experience a deep realization of our spiritual nature, and we begin to reestablish that channel of communication between us and the divine in us. So moving forward to principle number 5, it's important not just the understanding of it, but the actual practice of those principles. So today we're going to explore how we can do that.
And Jason, if you put up, thank you. So this is the verse that goes with principle number 5. Faith without corresponding action is useless. And so this is what each one of us does, right? Even when we're driving, right? Are we allowing that person to cut in front of us? And if we don't allow them, but they still cut in front of us, how long does it take us to take a deep breath, forgive them, and move on, right? So that's part of that practice and part of that growth. My next goal is the body that sits on the chair in your 5-minute exercise, that's referring to a meditation exercise, is as a drop of foam being expressed at the slightest tip of one wave in an infinite ocean. That ocean is itself within the unlimited expanse of your mind. You are consciousness as such, pure spirit. So we see our limitations. Our physical body has limitations. We all live close to a body of water here in Miami. I know we have people watching us in North Carolina, in Washington State, in Portland, Australia. So we have all seen that foam that forms at the top of the waves. And that's our physical bodies. That's the comparison. But the whole ocean fits inside each one of us. Each one of us has that whole ocean inside. That ocean is itself within the unlimited expanse of your mind. And that's where omnipresence comes in. Is God everywhere present, 100% present in each one of us. And that is so powerful and so amazing, and at the same time so challenging for us to remember. I'll speak for myself. And from that space of wholeness, on oneness, that's where we become whole. That's where we become generous and grateful. Because once we are full, once we are aware that we are in that God presence, in that oneness, then everything else becomes a cherry on top. The bank account, the friends, the family, the lovers, everything is the cherry on top because we are already filled with God. I work for the federal government, and this week has been one of a lot of changes. And it has been challenging. And I remember a few years ago when we were back in 411, on the 411 address, one of the ministers telling me, yep, we have congregants from different parties. And that, to my naive mind, was mind-blowing. And so in view of what we are going through, this Unity on the Bay is the perfect place for us to come together because we have this strong base to stand on. Charles Fillmore and Merrill Fillmore, when they created the 12 powers, the 12 faculties, the faculty of faith, they assigned it to Peter, the apostle. And he says Jesus called him rock, the rock, because that's the strong foundation on which we stand. And so we stand on our faith. We have these 5 principles as our basis for us to come together, to co-create together, to create a world where we respect inclusivity, where we value diversity. And when we say we are one, we're in the oneness, it doesn't mean that we're all the same. So to have that patience, that discernment, to be able to sit with each other and listen to each other, and maybe sit in silence if we cannot talk about it, but just sit in silence and be present with each other. We have the power, we have the practice to be able to do that here with each other. And from here, then we can extend it to our workplace, we can extend it to our homes, our families, and to our bigger community, and to the world at large. My next quote is from Lao Tzu. It says, because the sage always confronts difficulties, they never experience them. So we are those sages, and we're not closing our eyes, we're confronting the difficulties. And so because we are confronting the difficulties, we never experience them. Basically, because we're here for each other. Basically, because we're here to support each other. One of the biggest gifts of prayer chaplaincy was that when we are the ones going through a challenge, it becomes challenging to hold the high watch. And so that's the gift of us having prayer chaplains up here every Sunday, is that they can be centered and hold that high watch until we can hold the high watch for ourselves. And so that's the power of community. That's the gift of our diversity, of our inclusivity. We have different ages, different countries, different colors, different heights, different weights. It's beautiful. We're beautiful. And each one of us is God in expression. Charles Fillmore also says that Peter can go rogue. Peter is the one that walked on water. He is the one that told Jesus, when Jesus asked, was inspired, and said, you are the Son of God. He is the one that said, I will never betray you and not deny you, and 3 hours later he did. And then after that, he told Jesus 3 times that he loved him. And so to me, that was Jesus giving Peter a chance to redeem himself, to forgive himself, because Jesus had already forgiven him. So Warren Felt Evans is one of the forefathers before the Fillmores. And he says that when we ask, how can I get that faith? That we're asking the wrong question, because we already have that faith. We just have not focused it. We have to get Peter and get all that rogue energy and move it to go where we want to go. So we don't have just one mustard seed. We have many mustard seeds. And it's up to us to decide how we want to line them up. For my White Stone ceremony, I led the White Stone ceremony at Unity of Miami Gardens, and I used round stones. To me, they remind me of the target I'm going for. And so one of them is change. And when I was getting ready for the Burning Bowl ceremony at Unity of Miami Gardens too, it dawned on me that I have this phrase, inherited, I shall say. But I have this phrase that I earned this with blood, sweat, and tears. I built this with blood, sweat, and tears. But then it dawned on me, like, what am I doing saying that? And Access Consciousness, which I had been introduced to by one of our prayer chaplains here, Christina Veloso. Some of you may know her. Their mantra is, all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. So even in the face of challenges, all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. So I made my word change. And in the back, I asked the congregants to put 3 steps to support that word. And so for me, I put change with ease, joy, glory, and grace. I do break rules, even my own. So I'm going to ask you to be mindful of your own power, to be mindful that we together and by ourselves, we can affect change in our lives and in our community. And with that, I'll leave you with Angela.
So when I was first introduced to Unity, I was very familiar with the first 2 principles, but what was new to me was principle number 3, about our thoughts. Back in those days, I thought that I can think anything I want, I could feel anything I want, and there will be no consequences whatsoever. So when I was introduced to the teaching, I was fascinated, and I decided to dive into it. A year or so later on into the teaching, I began to experience a sense of frustration with myself. It's like, how is it that I know all those things, and yet I have a very difficult time living in it? And as I continue to go deeper into the teachings, I learn about that there's such a thing called chemicalization, that when you introduce a new idea to an old way of thinking, all of a sudden there's this tug of war within ourselves. Our old way of thinking will begin to question and sow doubts. Who do you think you are? If you were divine, look at your life. That doesn't look like you are divine at all. So, right? So you have this conflict going on within ourselves. Not only that, but I also learned that within our mind, we have the conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind, and we have the superconscious mind. And our subconsciousness is like this big recording machine that begins to record every thought, every feeling, every perception, the stories we tell about ourselves, and it begins to create this crystallized belief at a very deep level. So here's what happens to most of us. When we are introduced to new ideas, at a conscious level, we believe that we are divine, we believe that we stand on holy ground, we believe that the inner kingdom is fully established within ourselves, that we do have what it takes, that we don't need to look for love, for peace, or anything outside because it's already within us. Beautiful. But If at a subconscious level, you're believing, I'm separate, I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, I am a victim of the world I see, life is hard, my good is out there, I need to work really hard in order to get it, guess what happens? Your subconscious mind would override your conscious mind and will determine what kind of reaction and response you have to the events of life. Now, your reactions and response to the events of life are the seed of your future creation. Therefore, we need to undergo a process of renewal, not just of the conscious mind, but at the subconscious level. Now, our subconsciousness gets reprogrammed through repetition, meaning what? On a daily basis, we need to begin to send in new imprints, new affirmations, contemplating higher truths. That's when you begin to spiritualize it and make a change. So our job is to keep on keeping on until we reach a transitional point within ourselves. Whereas before we understood something intellectually, all of a sudden it becomes a conviction in our heart. That's when our subconsciousness is now aligned with our consciousness and we become powerful creators. Now, knowing all that, still I was feeling a victim of my old way of thinking. It's like something bad happened, I respond with a negative way. Something good happened, life is great, so happens, I feel so inside. And I just didn't know how to control it until pandemic hit. When I was faced with this great level of anxiety that I didn't know what to do, that's when I realized that I have been resisting the practice of regular meditation, mindfulness, and prayer. So back then, I decided to make a commitment to myself. From now on, no matter what, I'm going to be consistent with this practice. 5 years later, I've noticed the change in my life. 2 major changes. First one, my emotional field stopped being a roller coaster ride. Good things happen, yeah. Bad things happen, oh my gosh. So you begin to create an inner stability within you. But the second and most important is through the regular practice of meditation, we begin to develop this quality of awareness known as the witness, the observer that is different from the thought. So you begin to create a little distance. Now your thoughts are at arm's length. There is you, the observer, and there is the thought that is being presented to you. When you can keep your thoughts at arm's length, it's much easier to recognize when a negative thought is knocking at the door of your consciousness for you to take a look and see, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I'm just going to dismiss it and continue to keep on focusing on appreciation, focus on my own divinity, my oneness with Source. So it takes this constant practice. Not only that, according to Charles Fillmore, silence is a state of consciousness entered into for the purpose of putting each person in touch with the divine mind so that the soul may listen to the still small voice. So the regular practice of meditation is going to help us once again develop that channel of communication between us and our higher self. And when we combine that with the practice of prayer, like I said, prayer here is contemplation of high spiritual truths. What happens is we're constantly sending in new imprints at the subconscious level, and that's where the transformation takes place. So it's a very powerful combination. Another very important thing that we can do in putting into practice principle number 5 is to train to respond and react differently to the situations of life, especially those that trigger us. So according to Eric Butterworth, things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only thing that really counts is what happens in you. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control what we think about what happens to us, and that is where our power is. So if you catch yourself responding differently to an event, whereas before you used to be angry and frustrated, now you have a little bit more compassion and peace in your heart with the same event, pat yourself in the back and celebrate that little victory, because it's the daily little victory that we do continuously that will make the final change. To bring this message to a conclusion, yes, the 4 principles are very important. However, if you do not put into practice principle number 4, which is the regular practice of prayer and meditation, you're not going to be able to experience principle number 1 and principle number 2, because you cannot know God with the intellect. God has to be an experience within ourselves, an experience in the heart. So some of you may be asking, okay, how long would it take for me to reach that turning point? What do I have to do? How long would it take? And the answer is this: how much do you value it? For here's the key. If you begin to become passionate about this process of inner transformation, and you begin to put it a priority in your life, sooner than later, you will reach your destination. So my question to you is, what are you passionate about, and are you making it a priority? And remember, if you begin to become passionate about your inner transformation, not only you're going to get there sooner than later, but you will be able to fulfill that passage in Scripture that says, seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be added unto you. Seek first this inner transformation that would allow you to experience this inner kingdom, and let everything else be given unto you. Thank you. Namaste.
One more time for Angela and Carmen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you not only for the message, but really how they